welcome to another episode at Consciously Evolving Enterprises, where as always I'm your host, Mr. Ryan Dillon Brasington, bringing you a dramatic story told with enthusiasm. Hopefully it gauges your attention and you enjoy it. So here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan's dad was quite a inventive man, quite architectural. Very architectural indeed, but had no formal training. So he gathered up what materials he could from garbage piles or side curbs, and started to construct a awesome cubby house in the backyard surrounding their old tree. Now, the tree itself was probably 150 years old, amazing big tree. Not sure of what type of tree it was, but beautiful big one, nice thick bark, that dark Tony brown, dark with beautiful big leaves, dark kind of green leaves, I guess. That didn't fall very often, so there wasn't much litter around autumn time for them either, I guess. Pretty damn sturdy tree. And so was the cubby house that was built around that tree itself. Now, Ryan's father, Mark, as I was saying, had collected an ominous, massive amount, of materials that, themselves sometimes might have been rotten, still had nails hanging out of them, and kind of need to be trimmed down and fixed up themselves before they can be used in construction. Learning that point was one point where Mark was on one end constructing the floor and Ryan's on the other end, and he stepped on that flooring and it projected Ryan up into the air, and he grabbed onto the tree like a koala, as the flooring kind of fell away down below them. And so from that point forth, Mark always ensured that the flooring itself and all other bits of timber and wooding that he collected were in good order and weren't rotten. So, learnt mistake, obviously, from someone with no formal training. But over the years, I guess that year itself and the following year, that treehouse doubled in size. So not only was it a one-story treehouse that, us kids were really, really enjoying, it was also now developed into a second story treehouse. And in the top story itself led up out to the top of the tree, where us kids could, climb that tree and get onto the roof. The second floor had, a double couch in it with a ladder that you could pull up with a rope via a pulley. Very, very cool system. And, the plan was we were going to get a fire pole built onto the side one day, or even a slide put in that led down and away from the barbecue itself and led into the sandpit. But, all plans. But us kids really enjoyed that cubby house when we were young. Being very explorative kids, or us kids liking to explore, getting high and dangerous. One point, older sister Natasha had fallen off the back of the treehouse and got her legs stuck between the fence and the treehouse itself. Now, she was hanging upside down for a good 10 minutes before anyone heard her screams and cries. Luckily, she didn't break her tendons or her ankle in the process, just kind of managed to bruise it all up. So she was in a bit of a moon boot after that, but nothing too serious. Ryan, being a very exploring young man, decided, he's going to get up high in the tree, see all the neighbours that he can see out above. Now, at his level, he's looking over the second story houses in the neighbourhood. You could see the top of their roofs, You could see next door, the dog in the kennel and everything that's happening there, and the other neighbours on the left-hand side, that got their carport there in their garden and they're washing on the line, and can look out far behind him where the sandpit, where the baseball pit is and the softball fields are. So, anyways, he's gazing up there and he's enjoying life, and this time around his friends were with him. He had his close neighbour Nicholas who was with him, and his younger brother, Benjamin, who was also there and also climbing their way up the tree. And to make room for them, Ryan decided, what, I'm going to jump on the roof here. I'm going to make my way across it, and they can make their way up and see what I just saw. And so, anyways, he's invited them up. He said, "Yeah, don't worry, I'm going to step on this part of the roof, and you guys come up." So as he's made his way to the front, jumped off the tree, crawled along the kind of the roof, the tin at the top, and all's pretty safe at this point. And his friends are, making their way up the tree, and he's got, young Ryan's then got to the front of the treehouse where the tin was, like a front canopy kind of, a guttering, I guess. That was over the front of the cubby house. And he's going, "Oh, this is a beautiful view." And he stood up there and he's standing up and he's going, "I'm the king. I'm the king of the castle." And just as he said, "I'm the king of the castle," the tin broke underneath him, and he's fell. He's starting to fall, and he's straight through the tin, and he's fallen now in skydive mode. He's kind of got all fours out trying to catch the air around him, and he's fallen, and as he's falling, he looks between his legs as he's falling through, and he makes eye contact with his mate Nicholas that he's there, and his brother Benjamin that's even lower, as they quickly pass down, past, and he can only describe as what's said as the ground coming up towards him. He's being pushed towards that ground, and he's thinking, this is going to hurt. This is a big fall, and boom, into the ground he fell, and the wind's knocked out of him. And he said he's got sharp pain in his side, sharp pain in his hip, and he looks down, and he says, "There's a dog bone there." Now his dog bone was right on the peak, chewed to a pin kind of peak, and it's pointing right into his skin, and it's right in there, and he's thinking, "Oh, that's pierced in, that's going, oh," and he looks down, and he gets it, and he pricks it off him like a bindi. It hadn't even pierced the skin. Threw it to the side, took a deep breath, and then passed out. Went to sleep. Anyway, he's laying there on the spot, and his best friends have come rushing down, made sure he's all right, ran in and grabbed his parents and said, "Look, Ryan's just fell from the 2-story treehouse." So they've come rushing out and gone, "What the heck, nah?" And his dad's there, and he's laughing. He's going, nah, this is a joke, mate. This is a joke. How could he? Nah, no way. And he's looked up at the tin and could see where it was broken. He's gone, "Oh, what? No way." And his mum's there going, "Oh my God," in a panic mode. Then anyways, they've got to him and, shook him. He's woken up and he's going, "Oh, there's a dog bone in my side." And they've looked and there's nothing there. There's nothing there. And they looked at him and they said, "Are you all right?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm all right." Whoa. And he's looked down and he can see his Batman undies are sticking out. And he goes, "Oh," Ryan says, "Oh, I think my Batman undies saved me," as he's semi-half conscious, and then fell asleep again. And he's passed back out, and his parents are going, "Well, look, we better take him to hospital." That was a pretty large fall, and they, ended up packing him into the car, because that's what you do in those days, driving him to hospital, taking him for all the x-rays, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with him. There was no bruises, no penetrations from the bone. His mother was, fearful that he'd broken his jaw or dislocated his jaw, but there was no evidence that Ryan had fell from the treehouse at all. And he said, during his half semi-consciousness and, while he was half passed out, knocked out on the ground there, he said that he imagined that his Batman undies had saved him, that a giant spring had come out and saved his life. And his parents had laughed and giggled, and then pretty much said from that day forth, that his Batman undies saved his life when he fell from the treehouse. But, ladies and gentlemen, it was a large fall, and he did survive, and he lived to this day. Thank you for listening. Please like, describe, feed your comments, whatever it might be. Thank you.